Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are at. I'm so excited to be here with you guys on this day. This is the day you earned. So I am so excited to chat with you about what to do next and talk about what everything that's been happening in your body. I want to address some of the comments I saw before the webinar started. So it's just, this is celebration day. I know some of you still have some time to go before you break your fast, but most every one of us should be turning the corner, going into seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. So first, I want to start off with my number one rule around these longer fasts. There is only one person that gets the credit for what you just did, and that's you. So what you do in these moments is, when we get off this call, I want you to go look at yourself in the mirror and thank yourself and acknowledge what you just did. Because I can give you the information, the community can surround you. I saw all the DMs on socials are so beautiful. A lot of you are doing this in community. Yes, there was a lot of really cool support, but at the end of the day, you were the one that had to make the decision to push through the hard moments, to let your body heal, so you get the credit. So when we're done, you're going to go look at yourself in the mirror and you're going to thank yourself. You're going to honor yourself. You're going to be proud of yourself. I want you the rest of today to be walking around like you are a badass, like you just did something so incredible for your health. I was talking to a friend yesterday who has been trying to get into some of these longer fasts, and she was saying that now she's getting better at like 36-hour fasts, and then she goes into like a 24-hour fast and comes out of a 24-hour fast, and then a week later does a 36, and she's just been dancing all around. And she said to me, people say this to me all the time, she said to me, she goes, I actually feel like this is working. I feel like I'm actually unsticking my weight. I'm like, yes, it is working. It is working. And it is this incredible healing tool that only you can do for yourself. And if you think about that, when we have something going on in our body, a symptom, we go to the doctor writes us a prescription. If we go home and take the prescription, and all of a sudden we start feeling better, the person that typically gets the credit in those moments is either the doctor or the prescription. We outsource our empowerment when it comes to health. You could do the same thing with a functional medicine doctor or somebody who runs a bunch of labs on you and puts a bunch of supplements, gives you a bunch of supplements, and that works, and all of a sudden they're the hero. Nobody is the hero today but you. Whether you made it as far as you wanted to make it, whether it was the easiest experience, you blew your mind away, or whether you suffered through the whole thing. There is no such thing as a failed fast. You did this. So that's the first thing that I really, really, really want you to know. You should be walking around the next couple of days feeling like a superhero, because you are. So I'm gonna start with that, and please put in there. I see some of you putting in how much weight you've lost. So put it in there, because we're gonna talk about how not to gain that weight back. So put it in the chat. It's awesome. I love seeing it. Okay, couple of logistical things before I go into talking about all the different variations. I'm going to talk about weekly variations. I'm going to talk about monthly variations. I'm going to talk about, for my postmenopausal women, we're going to talk about how do you time this with your hormones. So this is going to be a very dense call today. You may want to take notes, because I'm going to go through a lot of protocols that we found worked over the years. So it's this is gold right here. So I'm excited to share it with you. But before I do that, I want to go through some logistics. First, some of you have already discovered our Reset Academy. It is a membership group We've got 3,000 people in there working together, supporting each other, fasting. We work out together on Saturday mornings. Every other month, we do a 15-day fasting experience. I bring experts in to talk about different topics, everything from gut health to mindset to HRT and bioidenticals. It is a huge community, and some of you, it may be perfect for. So if you feel called to keep this information going, if you keep wanting to have webinars like this where I am sharing what I'm learning, sharing what I know, I'm over in the academy. That's where, and I have a team of coaches over there as well. So we are doing a fat burning reset in a couple of weeks. I'm sure my team's on the line. They can put the link in for that. It's a 15-day experience where I have 3 tracks. I have a muscle building track where you're going to use the principles of food and fasting to build muscle. I've got a fat burning track where you'll use the principles that I started to teach you this week to burn more fat. And then I have a mood track where those of you that are in perimenopausal years or menopausal years and you're really suffering with depression, anxiety, mental clarity, I have a whole track where for 15 days, I take you through these different ways of eating, different activities. This is what I used to do when I was coaching patients one-on-one. Now we've just taken the years of experience that I had working with people one-on-one and we've put them into these 15-day experiences, and it's the closest thing that you and I can get to doing this together. So please join us if you feel called. Please join us over there. Second thing, those of you who I haven't met face to face, I'm an in-person kind of gal. I like to hug. I like to high five. I like to raise the vibration of whatever room I'm in. And so I am so excited to be doing a 1-day event in collaboration with Hay House. It's called the I Can Do It event. I am doing a Fast Like a Girl pre-conference. I'm sure the Hay House crew here will put the link in for that. But we're going to do a full day of really customizing this for you. So it's in Phoenix. If you have the resources to get to Phoenix, come. My team will be there. I'm there. I'd love to hug you. I'd love to inspire you. And I'd love to walk you through how you do this, personalize this for you. So think of it like a workshop. That's why we're calling it the Fast Like a Girl experience. So that's at the March 22nd. That's going to be an amazing day. Okay, other things, two things. The journal comes out in April. I wrote the journal in conjunction with one of my sweet friends, Alex L., who is a journal expert. She's wrote a book called How We Heal. Love this woman. And she and I put our minds together and created an incredible journal that I wish I had had this week for you all to have you as thoughts were emerging. The journal is meant to help you write those thoughts down and to really navigate where you are in your relationship with food, your relationship with your body. So it's really cool. And then I'm in the process of putting a cookbook together that will come out in November. So we're really excited about that as well. So a lot of resources coming down the line. I saw somebody I did say a mood reset. So if you all, I have spent quite a bit of time this year really looking at the brain changes that happen to women over 40 and what we have to be able to bring our neurotransmitters and our moods back up. One of my rally cries right now is that when after 40, you're not just losing 2 hormones. You're not just losing estradiol and progesterone. Estradiol stimulated dopamine, serotonin, acetylcholine, GABA, oxytocin, glutamate, BDNF, all these neurochemicals that kept us happy, focused, able to hold on to new information. And so I, along with the team of researchers this year, we scoured the studies. There's a site called PubMed where we went to PubMed and we looked at all the current research to see what we could do to help women with this neurochemical change. And that's what that mood reset will be. And it's really interesting things. Like I found an article that said if you eat poultry, for my meat eaters, if you eat poultry and you follow that a couple hours later with a carbohydrate, that's the combination that helps make serotonin. So poultry has tryptophan in it. And so when you bring tryptophan into your body and then you follow that with a carbohydrate by raising your blood sugar, that combination helps you make serotonin. Well, for the 48-year-old woman who's losing estradiol, estradiol was stimulating serotonin. So it makes incredible sense that we can maybe focus in on new strategies for serotonin, and they may be food strategies, they may be exercise strategy, breathing. I mean, there's so much. Yes, vegans, don't worry. I'm keeping both of you in mind, and there's always a vegan track in everything that we do. Okay, so there's that. And then the last thing I will say is that I'm really excited about is if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, I'm starting a cooking show. So I'm actually right now at a new studio that we have rented. It's a house, and we're calling it the Fast Like a Girl house. And we have a huge kitchen, and we're starting to dive in on my YouTube channel to looking at food as a source of improving hormones. So it's the sugar burner system. You all just did the fat burner system. Fast Like a Girl really emphasized this fat burning system and brought it to the world and brought it to women and gave women an incredible resource. Now we got to clean up the sugar burner system. Those of you, I can't tell you how many women come to me and they're like, oh my gosh, how do I teach my daughter this? How, and again, I've talked so much about how concerned I am about the teenagers and the 20-year-olds and the world they're living in. Their food is way more toxic than ours. So what we're going to do with my YouTube channel is lean into more, how do you cook? We're bringing in celebrity chefs, nutritionists. Yeah, it's going to be really fun. So I'm excited to be sharing that with you. Okay, that all out of the way. Let's dive into the variations. So this is how I want you to think about this. If we go back to our primal friends day, the cave person day, I call them our primal friends, we got to think about how they looked at food. So they came out of the cave, they didn't have a refrigerator, they didn't have a pantry, they may have had some food left over from the night before, but for the most part, every day was about going and finding food. This is the hunter and gatherer mentality. And so sometimes that food would be very accessible, especially if it depending on the season. There would be a time where all of a sudden, they could pick berries and plants and eat them because they were close by. And then in the winter, they had to go maybe a little bit further to find food. Sometimes they could find a kill right away and kill an animal and bring it back. And sometimes it took them days. So they had to metabolically switch into this fat burner system so that they would have energy, the energy of ketones. The ketones would shut off the hunger hormone, and they would have mental focus to be able to gather food. But then what they did is once they made a kill and they found food, they feasted. So it's called feast famine cycling, and it's literally how we were designed to eat. One of the really interesting pieces of information I discovered in my research for Fast Like a Girl was, I wrote about it in the fasting chapter 2, was that there is a belief that there was a gene that our primal friends had that allowed them to go long periods of time without food and switch over effortlessly into this fat burning system. They call it the thrifty gene hypothesis. And the hypothesis is that if you had this genetic profile, you survived those hunter and gatherer days because you were able to go long periods without food. They believe that humans right now, we all have this gene. So back in the hunter-gatherer days, if you didn't have this gene, you didn't survive. So that your genetic profile didn't continue throughout the human species. But now they believe that everybody has this gene, and that the opposite is happening, that diabetes and all the metabolic challenges we have is because we're working against our genetic profile. We are not feast famine cycling. This is how we were meant to be. Go periods without food, then we get good quality food. They weren't going to McDonald's back in those days. They were eating from the land. They were eating plants. They were eating animal protein. They were gathering, and then they would sit down and they would feast on that. And that might last them a couple of days, and then they go back out and find it again. So this is what we want to mimic. Now, I know some of you have histories of eating disorders, or your relationship to food is not where you want it to be. I'm going to talk about that as I move through the different ways that we can feast famine cycle. Because what I absolutely saw when I first started to take my patients and do this feast famine cycling was that the body healed at such a profound rate. And people's relationship to food dramatically shifted. So we got to just first get out of this mindset that we count calories. We got to get out of the mindset that we need to portion control. I put the macros in there as a guiding post, but most of you are going to figure out that you can metabolically switch effortlessly without counting macros. That's what I ultimately want you to do, is to be able to have freedom from food. So we've got to learn how to go in and out of these two systems. So it's called variation. And the beautiful part about feast famine cycling is that if you are a cycling woman, you are going to do this variation to your hormones. If you are a postmenopausal woman, you're going to still do it to your hormones, but you don't have a rhythm to do it. So I'm going to talk about that. And if you're a man, you still have to feast famine cycling, maybe a little less, but it's really important that men even don't stay in this fasted state forever and ever and ever. So I'm going to start with the weekly variation. And this is you decide what works best for you. In the back of Fast Like a Girl, this was another really important section to me. I took all the weekly protocols, all the monthly protocols that I experienced with patients and for certain conditions, and I put them in the back of the book. They are there for you to use as a guiding light. If you are a person that, have autoimmunes back there, infertilities back there, like all the conditions we saw this feast famine cycling work with, and what I did with their variations. So know for specific conditions, that's back there. Okay, having said that, the weekly variation, my favorite variation is what we call a 5-1-1. So 5 days a week, you are going to do what's a comfortable fast for you. Most people, that's a intermittent fast. It's 13 to 15 hours. And most people can do that. I talked about the power of 13 hours on breast cancer survivors, and how that was one of the largest studies ever done on women. Just as little as 13 hours had a 64% less reoccurrence of breast cancer for the women coming out of traditional treatment. It's a brilliant study. So a lot of you, 13 hours is just fine. So you're going to do that 5 days a week. Now I'll talk about the food you can combine with it here in a moment. 1 day a week, I want you to stretch your fast. So the reason I want you to stretch your fast is it primes the fat burning system. So it gets your body used to being over there a little bit longer. Some of you, I saw in the comments, there was a few of you that this was a really tough experience for you. And if it is, these are the variations where you want to go into something, a comfortable fast, and then you want to 1 day a week, just stretch that fast, just push it a little bit. I used to have my patients do 15 hours, 5 days a week, 24 hours, 1 day a week, because then I knew that they could get autophagy and gut repair in that 24 hours. So they were just eating one meal a day, which what that looks like is you stop eating dinner at 6 o'clock on Monday night, you pick up and eat dinner at 6 o'clock on Tuesday night, and you don't eat anything else during that time. That's how a 24-hour, it's also known as one meal a day. And 5 days a week was intermittent fasting. And then 1 day a week, you are not fasting. So a really common question that I get a lot is, doesn't fasting cause your metabolism to slow down? And put it in the chat if you've thought about that. And it does if you do one meal a day over and over and over again. If you stay with the same fast, the same restriction over and over and over again, yes, your metabolism will slow down. The analogy that I love to use is if you and I were in a cabin in the woods and it was winter and it was snowy and a bunch of firewood got placed at the outside the cabin door, and it was cold, and in the beginning of the winter we would start pulling the wood in, burning it to keep us warm. And then if one day we looked out there and all of a sudden we saw the wood pile was much shorter or much smaller, we would slow down the burning of the wood. But that would probably take, depending on how big the wood pile is, that would probably take a couple of months before we made that cautious decision. The same thing with your metabolism. When you first go into the fasted state, it first identifies where all this fat is, all the excess is. It burns and burns and burns and burns. But if you stayed in that restriction mode for too long, eventually it would go, wait a second, not enough food is coming in. We better slow down how much fat we would burn. And yes, you would get stuck with your weight. So both men and women. So the 5-1-1 is meant to be a rhythm you can do, a fasting lifestyle is what we call it, a rhythm that you can do effortlessly. So 5 days a week, 13 to 15 hours, 1 day a week, push that fast. Can you get it to 24? And 1 day a week, you eat breakfast and you don't fast. Now you're never going to hit that place where your metabolism is adversely affected. Okay, now what do you do on those days? So, and this is not even cycling for your menstrual cycle for those women that are interested in mapping that out. We'll talk about that in a moment. But personally, I like 5 days a week of keto and ketobiotic. And for me, I am a meat eater. I like to do a protein and lots of vegetables, like protein, fiber, and fat are my go-tos. And so 5 days a week, that's a lot of what I'm eating and I like it because it keeps my mind sharp. It keeps that, remember, but we're back at hemoglobin A1C. It keeps my glucose low. It keeps my weight where I want it. It for me feels the best. So I do intermittent fasting with ketobiotic, and I wrote about those two in the book, or that diet in the book. And then 1 day a week, I push it, I keep that ketobiotic, and then on my feast day, I carb load. So to me, the feast day, the one feast day is about building progesterone up. I'm a 54-year-old woman who has the least amount of progesterone she's ever had. So 1 day a week, I carb load so that I can make sure I'm keeping my glucose high for progesterone's needs. So that's the 5-1-1. And for men, you're using the 5-1-1 to make sure that you don't get stuck with weight loss, that this metabolic switch you're able to do effortlessly. Okay, the second carb loading, I put it in the book. I should call it hormone feasting is the way I look at it. It's 100 to 200 grams of net carbs. Now let's talk about a net carb before I go on to the next variation. A net carb is a total carb minus the fiber, and you get a net carb. So this is beautiful because if you start to eat more vegetables, you're going to see you can, if you put it in the lens of 100 to 200 carbs, net carbs, you're eating a lot, because it has, all that has so much fiber in it. But if you decide that you're going to do the breads, the cakes, the pastas, the cookies, all of those kind of carbs, the refined flours, the refined sugars, you're going to see that 100 to 200 net carbs is going to go really fast. So again, that's why I continue to encourage you nature's carbs. That's our fruits, our vegetables, our potatoes, quinoa. I'm a huge fan of quinoa because it has protein in it. Wild rice, forbidden rice is the one we cook all the time in our house. So that's how we look at the carbohydrates. So I do, like, Sundays typically is my feast day, is what I call it. I go to the farmer's market, I gather all my favorite foods, we cook, we have on Sunday night, my family is family night, we gather everyone together and we feast. It's a very beautiful way to approach food, in my opinion. So that's 511. Okay, 421. Now, the next weekly variation is 421. And I am going to give you two different versions of this. There is 421 for those of you that want to accelerate weight loss. And there's 421 for women that are over 40 or over 35 and are really struggling with progesterone. And how you would know you're struggling with progesterone is if you're spotting a lot, if you're anxious, you can't sleep, a lot of body aches, typically that means we've got some low progesterone. So I'm going to give you two versions of this. And I guess I should probably also point out, if you're like, well, how do I know if I'm low in progesterone or not? How do I know where my hormones are? I'm a huge fan of the hormone test, the Dutch test. You can find it on our website. I have a team of health coaches that reads it for you, explains your hormones to you. We do it on both men and women. I'm in a part of a mentor group, Jesse Itzler's mentor group. And there's a lot, we're launching this week where we're putting couples together, heterosexual couples, and we're running these tests on a man's hormones and a woman's hormone, and then we're coming together and with the help of a relationship coach who I interviewed on my podcast, Dr. Karen Gordon, and we're going to show couples how their hormones come into play with their relationship, which is really cool. But I digress. So it's for both men and women, and as soon as we work that out, we'll be bringing it to you. And my coaches right now are very skilled in reading this Dutch test if you want to know where your hormones are at. So 421 to lose weight looks like 4 days a week. You're doing ketobiotic, and you're doing 15 hours of fasting, intermittent fasting. 2 days a week, you're doing a 24-hour fast with ketobiotic, and 1 day a week you're feasting. That would be for accelerated weight loss. That would be a 421 for you. For my perimenopausal and menopausal friends, I've been there. I am you. I know it very, very well. And so your 2 days a week is not going to be longer fasts. Your 2 days a week, actually, let me just put it in the 421 sense. 4 days a week, you're doing ketobiotic, you're doing 15 hours of fasting. 1 day a week, you're extending your fast and you're doing ketobiotic. So you're going to that 24-hour place, and then 2 days a week, you're stepping out of fasting and you're carb loading, because we need more glucose. We need more nourishment for progesterone. So just to give you an idea, when I hit 45, I thought for sure I was going into menopause. I was spotting, and I was, by the way, that was the point that I was fasting all the time. I was doing 1 meal a day. I was doing 3-day water fast every couple of months. I was like obsessed with fasting. I loved how it made my body feel. And so I started to lose my cycle. I started to spot. I would spot, and then like a week or two later, all of a sudden I was noticing that my period would start. I had bad anxiety. I wrote all about this in the Menopause Reset. This is when I discovered all the tools in there. So if you're a perimenopausal woman or menopausal woman, you can go read that book. It's my journey with my perimenopausal experience and the 5 lifestyle changes I made. So 2 of those lifestyle changes that I made was I learned to vary my fast and I learned to vary my food, and I did a 4-2-1 all the time. 4 days a week I intermittent fasted, did keto. 2 days a week I started to come out of a fasted state, out of keto. I upped my carbs. I love sweet potatoes. You can pretty much assume that the new cookbook's gonna have a lot of sweet potato recipes in it, because I am a huge sweet potato fan. Which, side note, the Okinawa women, they eat tons of sweet potatoes, and it's one of the theories that they have towards their longevity because of the magnesium and the nourishment for progesterone, and it feeds the microbiome. So, side note on that. So 2 days a week, I hormone feasted, and then 1 day a week, I primed the switch by going a little bit further. So 4-2-1 with 2 days of feasting is phenomenal for women that are in perimenopause or menopause. Yeah, it's just incredible. Okay, 3-3-1 is the next variation. And 3-3-1 I've used for real people that are really stuck with their weight. I've also used 3-3-1 weekly variation for, I used to do a lot of work with patients who had cancer in my clinic, and we really worked on changing lifestyle. And one of the things we did is come up with the 3-3-1. So the 3-3-1 is 3 days a week of ketobiotic, and it is 15 hours of fasting. So you want it to be a comfortable fast. And then 3 days a week, you are doing a 24-hour fast. And then 1 day a week, you are doing a 36-hour fast. Now, I know that doesn't add up. That's over a week. I get it. It's, it's like 7 days and a little half a day. So, but that is something you would dip into in a week that you were like, I'm stuck with my weight, and I need something this week to turn me, but I don't want to go into a 3-day water fast. So you would do 3 days that week of intermittent fasting with ketobiotic. You would do 3 days of a 24-hour fast with ketobiotic. And then 1 day you would do a 36-hour fast where you're not eating at all. Now, I just see some of you saying you're confused. This is in the book. It's in the back of the book, all of these protocols. They are not consecutive. You get to choose. So Monday, you might end up doing your intermittent fasting with ketobiotic. Tuesday, you do 24-hour fast with ketobiotic. The next day, you do intermittent fasting, ketobiotic. Next day, 24-hour fasting, ketobiotic. Next day, you're gonna go for a 36. You vary it according to what works right for you. And it's not meant to be done every single week. The only time that I have seen it done every single week where it really was successful was with a beautiful man who I coached for several years who had lymphoma. And we wanted to really work on the principles that Walter Longo showed, where the immune system would reboot itself incredibly well. So he did 3-3-1 every week for a year, and all of his numbers changed. His health dramatically changed. He put lymphoma into remission. It never completely goes away, but it became this beautiful fast for him. Now that's hard work. 3-3-1 every week for a year is hard work. You got to have a pretty scary diagnosis to be able to do that. So those are the 3 weekly variations. Now I want to kind of address, so men, this is what you need to know. It's just weekly. You're just doing it weekly. My cycling women. So there's a couple ways. And by the way, I want you just to be curious about everything that I'm saying. I speak a language that you maybe haven't heard. So if you're confused, just sit with it, write down what you can write down, read the book. There's so many resources in the book. Join our academy. Like, I understand this is confusing, but put in the notes. If those of you, like, I know we have a lot of my academy members in there, put in the notes if once you put it into action, it became much easier, because it just gets easier and easier and easier the more you do this. This is why I love it. It's just very unique in the beginning, okay? So just hang with me. And this is advanced stuff, right? So here we are on the 4th day. I'm going deep. So I don't want to lose you. I don't want you to be frustrated. I want you to know you can do this. It gets so much easier. Just hang with me, I promise. I'm really working to create lifestyle tools that get easier with time, that don't get more difficult with time, okay? So stick with me, okay? And some of these words, some of you were asking, academy, what's that? I talked about that earlier. So go back and watch the beginning of this. Ketobiotic, what's that? It's in the book. So everything that's coming out of my mouth right now has a resource to go and learn about it. It's really important to me that you don't get frustrated and give up on these principles. Okay, so my cycling women, you might do, so in Fast Like a Girl, and sit tight if you're not a cycling woman, just sit tight for a second, because this was the whole premise of Fast Like a Girl. Day 1 is the first day of your period, the first day that you need some feminine care products. So the first 10 days, day 1 through day 10, that's a phenomenal time to do longer fasts and to do keto. You want to keep your glucose down. So my cycling women, you may decide those first 10 days, you're just gonna do 17-hour fast, 24-hour fast, and you're gonna do keto for 10 days. I'm no longer in a weekly variation right now. I am in a monthly variation. I have moved the conversation from weekly to monthly. So those first 10 days, power up on your fasting and your keto lifestyle. And that's why I called it the power phase. When you move in to ovulation, day 11 to day 15, you can still fast, but that's the moment that you have the most amount of estrogen, the most amount of testosterone, and a little bit of progesterone. And in that ovulation window, your tool is your gut microbiome. I want you to feed those bacteria. So we talked about that yesterday on the 3 Ps. So I want you doing lots of fiber, lots of nuts, lots of seeds. I want you to bring up your protein. I want you to get off alcohol during that time. I want you to eat more bitter foods that are like radicchio and dandelion greens and ginger and lemon, so we can support the liver and the gut, so it can break down all of the hormones that you've already built. So that's day 11 to day 15. Day 16, the hormones drop again. There's a chart in the book showing this. The hormones drop, and you have this really interesting 4 to 5 day period that if you want to lose weight, go back to your keto, go back to a longer fast before day 20 hits. Day 19, day 20, you got to step out of fasting. This was the outlier week that I discovered for myself, that if I stopped fasting the week before my period, if I started to increase all the healthy carbs, all of a sudden I stopped spotting. So back to that story I was telling you where I was spotting at 45. Once I figured out how to fast like a girl, and I started doing more of my fasts in the beginning of my cycle, I did more carbs at ovulation to help estrogen get broken down. I fasted again coming out of ovulation, and then that full week before my period, I did not fast. I ate more carbs, and bam, like I thought I was going into menopause. I wasn't. All of a sudden my cycle came back on track. I stopped spotting, the anxiety went away. And from about 47 till I just officially became postmenopausal, till 54, I had effortless periods. I had finally, it took me my whole life to crack this code. So that is what Fast Like a Girl is about, is to give you a monthly variation that you map to your cycle. So the weekly variations are great for men. They're great for my postmenopausal women. You can do a weekly variation. They're not so great for the woman who still has a cycle. Now, I want to keep in mind that in Fast Like a Girl, I gave you a 30-day reset. I gave you a beginner reset and I gave you an advanced reset. So it's in there. It's a go-to that you can do. In the cookbook, I'm going to have shopping guides. I'm going to have meal plans. I'm going to take it to the next level for you all. So just sit with the principles. Understand that this is a process. Nobody ever taught us how to eat in a monthly way, but this is how you do it. And so for women that still have a period, we do it according to our menstrual cycles. Okay. Now, my menopausal women, men, don't leave me yet. Hang with me because I got more to come on all of this. For my postmenopausal women, there is something really interesting that I discovered in just research, in talking to other health experts. We don't have any science on it, but when I explain this to you, I think it will make logical sense. So postmenopausal women or 20 and 30-year-old women that do not have a cycle, you can track your fasting cycle according to the moon. Now, every person that I've talked to in the Ayurvedic medicine world always says, oh yeah, of course. Like that's a well-known Ayurvedic principle that you fast according to where the moon is. And here's what it looks like. Day one, so when you go into the Fast Like a Girl book and you look at that 30-day reset, or you look at the fasting cycle, day one of your period that you don't have is the new moon. So it would be day one is the new moon. So the moon is now waxing. It's now about to grow. So that would be day one. Ovulation would be where the full moon happens. So, we get somewhere in there around day 14. That's the full moon. That matches to ovulation. Today's the new moon. Amazing. So awesome. Thank you. Thank you, all my moon lovers. I love it. So today it would be day one of your period if you had a period, but you don't have a period. So we use the moon as a tracker. Day 14, 15, whenever the full moon is, that's your manifestation phase. I wrote about it in the book. It's also known as your ovulation phase. Now, how does this work? Why does this work? So for starters, my postmenopausal women, here's what I want you to know. There's a well-paved path from the brain to the ovaries that has been working for decades. We are rhythmic humans. We have been rhythmic from the day we started our period to the day we ended our period. There has been a rhythm that has been happening for us. Just because we don't have a period anymore doesn't mean we shouldn't follow a rhythm. And the most logical rhythm that I can see on a monthly time period is the moon cycle. There is no coincidence that a woman's menstrual cycle goes somewhere between 28 and 31 days, and the moon cycle is 28 to 31 days. That isn't a freaking coincidence. We are, as women, as humans, we are intimately attached to the earth. This is why we can't destroy the earth. This is why we need plants. This is why we need to take care of this beautiful home we get to live on. And if you're living in a female body, you are also in rhythm with nature, and it's called the moon. Now, if we didn't have blue light coming off of computers, blue light coming off of our phones, blue light in our houses, if we didn't have that synthetic light that was manipulating our natural rhythms, most of us as women would be cycling with the moon. But we got off course because of synthetic light coming in. And I'm not saying everybody needs to like all of a sudden go to candlelight. I will tell you, if you walk into my house at night, I got red light bulbs everywhere. It's like if you look into my house at night, you probably wonder what the heck is going on in there, because I keep the lights very red when it's nighttime so that all of our circadian rhythm can get into rhythm with the 24-hour cycle. But as menopausal women, as women that have lost their cycle because of birth control or because of stress, let's use something as wicked and as powerful as the moon. Let's get in rhythm with that so that we can start to come back into this some type of ebb and flow that the body was meant to be in sync with. So when we think we're separate from nature, we are not separate from nature. And there is literally no coincidence that there is a 28-day or a 30-day moon and a 30-day menstrual cycle. One of my, a funny side note that I will tell you, in being out in the world and sharing these principles out in the world, you sometimes get people who say some pretty gnarly things to you. And one of my favorite moments of this year was I went on Mel Robbins' podcast, and Mel loved this moon idea. Like she even like had a quote of something like, yeah, because we're wicked bitches or something like that. Like she had a really funny statement about it. I loved it. Like she and I were geeking out on how powerful women were because we were so synced up with the moon. And then I saw a comment on the reel that went out, and somebody said, I looked up this moon cycle thing. I can't find any science on it. Therefore, I don't believe anything this woman's saying. Okay. They do not study women. When you put on a research study, it is hundreds of thousands of dollars. They do not study women, let alone how we relate to the moon. I am an optimist. I am so encouraged by what's happening here in America with Jill Biden leading and Maria Shriver leading the charge of putting money into funding for looking at women and how we can start to use research to understand lifestyle for women and medications for women. I love that. But I am pretty sure we're never going to know the complete answer on the moon. So we've got to be able to go back and look at ancient strategies like Ayurveda. Like they know it. The other interesting thing that I learned on the moon cycling thing was I was in Kauai for a couple of weeks last year, and we had this beautiful yoga instructor that came to our Airbnb every day, and she was a surfer and a yoga instructor. I guess that's what you do when you live on the North Shore of Kauai. And so she told me that they figured out the women that lived there, they were all surfers, that there was a large community of them. They realized they were all cycling together. Now, they weren't cycling together because they were living in the same house or working in the same area. She said they believe it's because of being outdoors all the time. And then what's affected by the moon is tides. So I was like so excited when she told me that. I'm like, oh my gosh, like there's a living example of women cycling with nature right there, because they're out in nature all the time. And they're in the ocean that is affected by the moon. So I love the moon as a resource for those of us that don't have a period. You can take the 30-day reset in the back of Fast Like a Girl. Day one of those resets is the new moon, that's today. And the full moon should be somewhere in that manifestation phase. Now, I also want to point out, if I haven't mentioned it, that we do have an app. It's called Fast Like a Girl app. And we're working on making it better and better and better. We have the moon cycle in there now. We have, you go in and you can put what day of your cycle you are at, and it will tell you your options for food, and it will tell you your options for fasts. Now, we also have tracking of moods to see if you need to maybe go into a little more carbs. It's a really cool app, and it's only getting cooler. So please lean into that. If you are confused, download the app and just go right there so you can see what day you're on. And if you're going to follow the moon, you can follow the moon there. Okay. Next thing. So we have weekly variation. We have monthly variations. We can do it according to our cycle. We can do it according to the moon. So those are your options of the variations. You can go into the back of into the appendix, and you can look at your specific condition. And I gave you anywhere from 30 to 90 days of variations according to different conditions. So we have all that. Let's talk about what causes people to gain weight after this experience. So there are a couple things I want you to know. There is going to be a subset of you that are going to be so excited, you feel incredible, and then you just boomerang back into your old eating styles. I get it. I mean, you might even, I always say, do the 5-day approach or the 5-step approach of getting back into food. Try it maybe for a day. Remember we talked about the elimination diet? If you're like, love something sweet, if there's like French fries you've been craving that you haven't been eating, I would encourage after the 5 days, try it. Go eat it. Let me know how it works. Let me know how you feel. You're so clean right now. Go eat your favorite thing. See how you feel. Because before you go back into all those bad habits, it'll do one of two things. One, it's going to help you see how that food makes you feel. And two, if you have that food addiction, if you have that food craving, just experience the food and just get it out of the way, and then move in to one of the variations that I talked about. It is a mindset game, is why I'm telling you to do that. We don't have the Android yet. It's coming. So we're working on it. We got a team that's working as fast as they can. So just know that if you're like, I can't wait for a piece of chocolate cake, fine. Do your 5-step process, go eat it, tell me how you feel. Sometimes you'll feel so bad, the aches and pains will come in, the brain fog will come in, that it's a logical consequence that you're like, I'm never eating this again. This is what happened to me in cereal. I loved cereal. For like most of my adult life, cereal was my jam. And the minute I broke a fast with cereal and I felt like somebody drugged me, I never wanted to eat cereal again. Like it literally ended my craving for cereal. So you might try that and see, just get it out of the way. Those of you that are like, whoa, I'm too clean, I feel so good right now, I wouldn't want to do it. You don't have to do it. I'm just looking to take this experience and use it to keep the momentum going, to keep building that fasting lifestyle. Okay, if you are like, no way, never going back. I had a couple calls from friends yesterday that were like, this is amazing, I feel incredible, never going back. Then what I would encourage you to do is you have two options. You can go into the 30-day fasting reset. Actually, you have three options. You could go into the 30-day fasting reset I put in the book. Just follow that. You can pick one of the weekly variations that I talked about, 511, 421, 331. You can follow that. Or you can join us in 2 weeks for another 15-day experience where I show you how to go in and out in a 15-day period. So those are all resources for you. And if you choose to join my academy, we have health coaches meetings next week where you can pop on group calls with my coaches. So there's a net there to catch you. So if you are worried about boomeranging back and you need that support, I just want you to know that that's there. But for the most part, I encourage everybody to pick a weekly variation or to pick a monthly variation. Same for my men. So when you're going, men, you do better with a weekly. It's just easier. You're lucky. You know, you don't have to think of this in a monthly term. But women, we need to think of it in a monthly term, whether you're postmenopausal or a cycling woman. So these variations are meant to give you a rhythm. I want you to enjoy food. So the other part of this that I wanna really emphasize is that as amazing as you may feel from these 3 days, you can feel that amazing with food. And they both are incredible. So I'm gonna repeat the food rules that I love to follow. That this is how I live every single day, these food rules. One is good oils, not bad oils. So bad oils, canola oil, cottonseed, corn oil, sunflower, safflower, partially hydrogenated oils, those are inflammatory. They are known obesogens. They will make you insulin resistant. So know your oils. I listed them in the back. We will be going in more detail with these oils in the cookbook. So stay tuned for that. Okay, that's the first food rule. You might write this down and put it up somewhere, put it on your refrigerator. And I'll tell you another rule I have around my food in my house for a hot moment. Okay, that's the first rule. The second rule, nature's carbs, not man-made carbs. That means anything that the earth provided us, any plant, anything that was grown and was brought to us by our incredible planet we get to live on, we're going to eat those carbs. This could include a banana. This could include pineapple, mango. Those are amazing for building progesterone. They are not keto foods. This could be potatoes, sweet potatoes. It could be the rices, the quinoas, the beans. This could be beans. All my vegan friends, like beans, yes. Those will raise your blood sugar. They're more carb centric. So let's just eat primarily nature's carbs. Now, there are a few outliers when it comes to like breads and flours. Ancient grains, like ancient grain bread. The one that comes to my mind is called Ezekiel bread here in the US. It is a sprouted ancient grain. It is not highly processed. The challenge we have with the highly processed wheat, at least here in the United States, I'm pretty sure they banned this type of wheat in France and Mexico were the two countries the last I saw were banning this. There is a new hybrid of wheat that was developed decades ago. And this hybrid of wheat, it allowed a farmer to grow a crop much quicker and yield a bigger crop. And in this wheat had something called Bt toxin in it. It was inherently in the fabric of the seed and in the fabric of the wheat itself. Bt toxin was meant to make it so that when a bug came to the crop, if it tried to eat any part of that crop and destroy that crop, that it would die, that it would be killed. So that allowed this farmer to be able to not have to tend to his crop or her crop as much, and made it so that the farmer didn't ruin any of their crop, that they made more money. That Bt toxin is in your traditional wheat that you're buying in the store, and when you eat it, it is destroying the microbes in your gut. This is why I do not eat any grain that is conventionally grown. Not to mention, yeah, thank you, Monsanto, exactly. Not to mention the amount of glyphosate that is sprayed on conventional wheat. But if we choose to eat an ancient grain, like an Ezekiel grain, or I saw somebody put in there sourdough, if you choose to ferment that grain, you are bringing the enzymes back. You're avoiding the Bt toxin, and that is a safer form of grain. So in this second food rule, yes, you can look at sourdough bread and I want it organic, and you can look at ancient grain bread like Ezekiel bread. Okay. Third food rule is no toxins. So this means you're going to start reading a label. In the cookbook, I'm going to have a whole thing on how you read a label so we can master this, because the food industry has gotten so crafty at like making sure that our labels are confusing so we don't know. For example, my friend Vani Hari, the food babe, she just put out a cookbook, by the way, that's phenomenal. Go get it. I also interviewed her on the Resetter podcast, and I love how tenacious this woman is about ingredients. She said the number one ingredient that we should avoid and put down is anything that says natural flavors on it. And she just made it so simple. If it says natural flavors on it, put it down, put it away. Or what I used to have patients do is email the company and say, what is in natural flavors? So we've got to stop eating chemicals. That's that third rule, is eat less chemicals. That means go organic whenever you can. That means no more NutraSweet. That means we're just pulling those toxins out. They are endocrine disruptors. They're destroying our hormones. Again, whole section on that in the cookbook. Okay, last food principle is protein. Make sure you're getting enough protein. Now, some of you are going to learn that in Fast Like a Girl, I set some protein limits that were a little bit lower than some of the things I'm saying right now. The protein limits that I set in Fast Like a Girl were based off of science that we knew when I wrote that book. It is those protein macro limits in there are phenomenal for losing weight. That book is, go read our reviews. Like, it's insane how much people are losing weight with those principles. And low protein was one of them. But there's new research, and we're learning and evolving. And one of the things that we're really learning is protein is this hero of the day. I've spoken about this throughout the week, that we need to look at upping our protein. For me, I am the weight I want to be. So my next step is I want to increase my protein so that I can start to build muscle as I move into my postmenopausal years. So because I am the weight that I want to be, I am looking at upping my protein to somewhere between 100 and 130 grams of protein per day. It's a lot. It takes effort. I'm working on it. And again, this is what we'll be teaching in my Reset Academy. We're really trying to understand protein in there and where it fits in, because protein is the new zeitgeist conversation. Everybody's like, protein, more protein, more protein. So we're practicing it as a group and finding out what works for us. So I add the fourth food rule is let's bring in more protein. For if you're a vegan, that might mean knowing the higher protein vegetables. That might mean more beans. That might mean more plant-based protein. By the way, Vani's plant-based protein powder is amazing. Love it. I do a lot of shakes trying to bring up my protein. And that's just what I found works the best when pairing it with fasting. So those are your food rules over here. So if we go back and just look at the summary, again, I'm repeating this so you guys grab it. You did such incredible work for yourself today. Please, I don't want you to lose this momentum you created for yourself. So we have weekly variation. We talked about that. We have two different monthly variations, and we have some good old-fashioned food rules that nobody taught us. If you just use those three things as your guiding light, like what is my weekly variation today? What is my monthly variation? And here are my food rules. If you just follow those, you will not gain the weight back. If you gain the weight back, there is one of two things going on. One is you didn't follow the food rules. And you're not varying your fasts enough. You got to keep varying those fasts and that food. Two, the last thing that I will tell you, and I've done videos on this. There's a whole section in the book on this called Opening Up Your Detox Pathways. Your detox pathways are as the body is shedding what it no longer wants in these states of fasting, sometimes our detox pathways are congested. One of the ways that you know your detox pathway is congested is by looking in your armpit. Your armpit is what's happening is all of the lymph coming from your arm, all of the lymph coming out of your head and neck, all of the lymph coming out of the chest and the breast area gathers here. It's like a portal. And if you have a puff there, you've got congested lymph. It's an armpit, not an arm puff. So all the time, I'm looking at my armpit. When I'm in the shower, I'm loofahing my armpit. I'm always assessing this to see how my body's breaking down toxins and getting rid of it. When I first went on bioidenticals, I was like, oh my God, it went from a pit to a puff. Something's not right, something's off. I need to make sure that I understand these detox pathways. We will talk a lot more about this in my academy. Again, I've done videos and I wrote about it in the book, so I have a whole path in there. I will end on this story. One of the really cool things in going out into the world and promoting Fast Like a Girl this year has been the incredible stories that we have received back. And one of them that really blew me away was a woman that messaged us after I went on Stephen Bartlett's podcast. If you have not, I think if you ask me the absolute best interview I had all year long, it is Diary of the CEO, Stephen Bartlett. He had me in that chair for 3 hours, nonstop. He asked the most brilliant question. It is one of the best resources. So go watch that, share it with friends. He did such an incredible job. Now, out of that came this discussion of the pit versus the puff. And that went out into the world. It's got like 6 million views on YouTube. So millions of people watched it. And we received a message from a woman who listened to that podcast and went and looked and saw she had a massive puff. She went to her doctor and it turned out that she had a very rare form of cancer. And she was able to get to it because she had a visible explanation of what was going on in her armpit that might be a problem. And because she caught it early, she has a very clear path. The prognosis is incredible because they caught it early. That to me is the power of two things. That is the power of understanding our bodies, and I will continue to teach you how this miraculous body of yours works, whether it's a man or a woman. My company and my whole team, we have two missions. The first mission is hormone literacy for everybody so that we understand hormones, and in that is also everything within our body. The second mission is or vision that we have is to empower women first to understand how powerful this body is. And that's what I did to this woman. I empowered her. I taught her, and it's not just me, it was Stephen and I having this incredible conversation. And she learned about her body. That is something her medical doctor should have taught her. That's what the gym teacher should have taught her at 13 years old, and nobody is teaching. So I am standing up and teaching it so that we all can be healthy. Second thing that moment taught me is that information saves your life. And as we learn this information, when we share it with each other and we get it out there into the world, we literally save lives. I have no idea if somebody shared that with her, Stephen Bartlett's podcast, if somebody shared that with her, but if they did, that person's a hero. So share this information if it connects to you. Share what you're learning, talk about it, spread it, share the book if that feels right for you. My Resetter podcast, I'm about to go do a whole series of solo episodes where I'm teaching this stuff and breaking it down. Go subscribe to that podcast. Go to my YouTube. When I'm on these big, amazing podcasts like Stephen's, share it out. We gotta start the conversation. I am not here to be a guru. I am not here to do anything else than start the conversation. You have been immersed in the conversation this week. We're more powerful together. Take what I've taught you, take these principles, and let's just spread it and talk about it and find out what works for us. We are not doing health in a damn silo anymore. We are not letting doctors ridicule us, make us feel bad, shame us, make us feel like they're the elite and that we are not, that we are less than. No, the time has come for us to own our health and for us to share our health. It can't be a silo any fucking more. I am so tired of that. And I'm so tired of people suffering because we're not spreading this knowledge. So, sorry to get riled up on you today, but this has to stop. So take what you learned, spread it, be curious about your body. Tomorrow I am doing a VIP Ask Me Anything. I will be answering your questions. After tomorrow, you can come find me in my academy. That's where you can ask me questions. That's where you can see my amazing team. But the thing I ask you to do today more than anything is go look at yourself, tell yourself that you are a badass for what you did. Know that you are your own hero. Nobody is the hero of your health but you. So make sure you give yourself credit and then go share what you learned, and let's just keep this movement going. So, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for showing up. Thank you for doing what you did for yourself this week. Every single person in your life that loves you thanks you, whether they're saying it or not. This is how we change chronic disease. This is how we bring health back. And we have to have a free tool like fasting. Okay. Big hugs to you all, and I'll see those of you in the VIP group tomorrow on tomorrow's webinar. So keep believing in yourself.